Hello and welcome to the Wolves Report. I'm Ryan Lester and thank you for joining us for episode 38, our transfer deadline day special. Slightly changed the show tonight. We're going to get some guests dipping in and out. We can't afford a full guest, so we're just getting the best that we can. We've got BBC WM's Daz Hale on his fourth podcast of the weekend this evening, and our two regular pundits in the form of Nocky and Tyler. If Nocky, Tyler and myself look a bit tired, that's because we had a few drinks watching the Bournemouth game last night, and other than Wolves, it was a good night. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the Newcastle game, the Bournemouth game, the transfer window, taking your questions and looking ahead to Southampton. Now, we've got you quickly, Daz, so let's make the most of you. Let's think back to Newcastle. I'd love to get your take on the game.
I thought the commentator alongside Steve Herman was excellent.
Oh, thanks, mate. We'll take that. And that's the end of the show.
I damaged my elbow celebrating the goal in the South Bank. It didn't hurt at the time until the adrenaline worn off. But probably it'd be so long until the next one, it'll be completely healed.
You'll be all right. You'll be all right. You're all right by then.
Yeah, there was a lot to like. It seems like a million years ago. There was a lot to like in that performance, and I don't think we learned anything particularly new, did we, about our shortcomings? And it was what an incredible goal. And then again last night, it was same again, wasn't it? And I mean, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I was saying on the phone actually tonight that I think the whole way we're trying to play, it ain't working. And I know that Bruno, since he's come to the club, he's wanted to not play with wide men, and he wants us to play, little give and goes around the edge of the penalty area. Too easy to play against. We've just signed a 6'7" centre forward. Got to get your winger on, get the ball wide, whip the ball in the box early, and give him something to feed off. Now, that might be a bit old school, a bit old-fashioned, but for me, that's when we're at our best. And when you think back to Traore with Jimenez a couple of years ago before the injury, the amount of times we scored goals from that, I really think it's time for a serious rethink. And I know last night on the show, you phoned up Ryan and you were saying, look much better when Podence came on, like with Traore the last 10 or 15 minutes last night. So the Newcastle game seems too far away from me now. I'm just thinking about last night's, but it ain't working, so it's time to change it. Why he's still got the chance to.
Well, it all looks really good. The defence looks good. The keeper's hardly tested. The midfield, is that your third? What's that there, Daz? Tequila Sunrise?
No. Gin in a tin.
So, it all looks good till it gets to the front. I mean, Bruno's used the word control, and I think that's lost in translation. But I saw a bit in the Newcastle game I really liked, and I thought, yeah, we've got this. It's a tremendous goal, a really well-worked goal. I mean, it was an absolute joy and pleasure to commentate on. And I thought the atmosphere was pretty good, but it's just such a kick in the teeth to defend that way and give the goal. Nocky, just give me your take on that equaliser and try and make sense of it to me.
I don't know what he's doing, if I'm being honest. It's just, you've got a simple 3-yard pass to, I think it was Max Kilman. You can put it into touch. You can put it beyond for a corner. There's 5 or 6 things he could have done. What he actually chose to do was welly it right to the edge of our penalty area. And I mean, it's a smashing finish from Sam Maximan, but he should never have reached him, should he? It was just a really strange decision when there's so many other options for him. But I thought in the game itself we were okay. I've heard a lot of people say that they think we played well. I don't necessarily agree with that. I thought first half we were okay. We created a few bits and bobs here and there, and we got ourselves a lead through a smashing Ruben Neves goal. And by the way, I think that's the best midfield performance I've ever seen from any player at Wolves. I thought he was absolutely incredible in that game. But second half, I felt Newcastle bossed it. I thought they were better than us. And the thing that's baffling me the most is we go in this 4-3-3, and I understand he wants to get the 3 players in midfield. We set up the whole of pre-season with a 4-2-3-1. We looked good in attack. We looked like we could score goals in that formation, and we've reverted to 4-3-3, which it's no better than anything we were doing last season. Really, we're stifling our attack again. So I thought a point was disappointing purely on the basis that it was the 90th minute when we conceded it, but I can't argue that we didn't deserve to win the game over the course of the 90 minutes.
Tyler, a brilliant goal, ruined by a stupid mistake. But did Wolves press Newcastle back and not allow them in, or did Wolves lack bravery to go and kill the game?
I think it's probably both. I think there was a spell in the second half where we looked like we'd gone down to 10 men. We were just clearing it from the edge of our box, lumping it forward. Their defenders were picking it up comfortably and then attacking again. I know you've been quite complimentary, Ryan, of our possession stats in the first few games, but I think we had 34%, was it? 36% at home. So that probably tells you a story in itself. I'm sort of with Knocker, but I've said it about the other games as well. I just don't think we did enough to win it. And it feels double bad because they've scored late. But realistically, a draw was fair, wasn't it? I think we invited them on too much. I think we went too deep. We sat too deep. Adama's the substitution, isn't he? If you're looking to get up the pitch and get that second goal, surely he's the change that you make. So again, funny substitutions that I think killed us a little bit. It's deja vu, isn't it? We're talking about the same stuff that we talked about after the Spurs game, after the other games, and like Daz said, it's not working, is it? We can talk about it till we're blue in the face. It ain't working, and something's got to change.
So just on that subject, I know we've got an hour and a half show tonight. We're going to pace ourselves, so we're going to go backwards and forwards and cross over because I'm keen on to get all the professionals' views who are coming and going. What's got to change for you then, Daz? I know you talked about being a bit more direct with Traore. Now there's a 6'7" forward going to be hopefully starting on Saturday. What's got to change?
First of all, he's got to play Sasa Kalajic, and he's got to become the focal point. I take your point that I think that defensively we look fine. I'm not convinced yet that, it hasn't worked yet going to a 4 from a 3 because we still ain't scoring any goals and we're still not winning any football matches. But I like the idea of that. I don't think the makeup of the midfield is right, personally. But that may change with Boubacar Traore if and when that goes over the line later on this evening. But we're just a little bit... and the biggest problem I've got with us is tempo. The build that plays really nice to watch. Slow, quick, slow. But it's too easy to... I mean, last night they just parked the bus, which they're entitled to. And it's probably the most sensible thing to do after what had happened at the weekend. But apart from once, late on, when Raul was put through, we never really got round the back of them or hurt them. And it's just too easy to play against. It's too nice. It's too tippy-tappy. It's too pedestrian. And it's not working.
Well, we was talking when the three of us watched the game together last night, and Tyler made a point earlier on. You could see that Wolves pretty much had total control of the game, but with that much control in the game, there wasn't enough for me. There wasn't enough bravery. That there was just a lack of movement in the final third. It just seems when I know we're talking about that switch to Podence, the game changed then, but it was too late. That those changes could have probably happened just after half time. It was clear for all to see. It was crying out for Ait-Nouri to be direct. It was crying out for Podence. And even Traore, I mean, I say even Traore, I like Traore. These players made a difference to the team. So,
he's out now. He's staying in now. So,
hang on a second, Daz. We've got an hour and 22 minutes yet. I'm not going to get carried away.
Right, but as it stands, I mean, and the fact that Neves is still here, Traore is still here. Despite Arsenal fans trying their best, Neto's still here. It looks as if Wang is, although Leeds have lost out on 2 players that they were hoping to sign tonight. So whether they'll make a late bid for Wang on loan or anything, I don't know. So, the players are there, but the system isn't working. And I'll keep going back to that and change it, try something different. If we don't score, we haven't lost anything, have we? Because we're not scoring now. The point somebody found up last night after the game and said, and I've checked it and it's right, that we have failed to score in 20 of our last 43 matches. And it's not even as if like this time last season, the first 3 games last season, we lost all 3 1-0, but we were peppering teams and we were creating a hatful of chances. Goalkeepers were having worldy games. We're not even... We might be having... You look at the stats, we've had so many shots. But how many of them have been proper goal-scoring opportunities? We're just not creating enough. We're too easy to play against. And hopefully now with this new centre-forward in, there's a case for even playing Raul alongside him or maybe as a 10. As it takes so he hasn't got to go in where all the boots are flying and maybe use his intelligence a little bit as well as part of the link-up play. But he's got to change it. So if he doesn't, he ain't going to be managing for much longer because what he's currently doing isn't working.
Great question here coming up from RS Wolves. Can any of you name a forward that looks good in this system? That's a really good question. And I probably can't. And I know Knocker and Tyler have definitely been critical of the forward so far, and probably rightly so. They've probably not given us enough. Is it the system? Is it the players? There's some good footballers there. So something somewhere is going wrong. When Wolves were breaking last night, Pedence's turned and gone. He's got the ball out right. He's played Raul, and that's more like it. But it just seems a bit. I mean, I said this to you last night, Dad. It seems predictable. It's too much of a solid method. Doesn't seem enough fluency in there. Are we going to change that, Knocker?
Personally, I'm going back to 4-2-3-1 because I think that's a system that will work for us. I think the 4-3-3, as I said earlier, I don't think it changes anything from last season. We're very similar going forward than we were last year, and we know that wasn't effective. So I think a 4-2-3-1, get someone closer to whoever the striker's going to be. So he's got someone to play off, because I think Raul potentially is a little bit isolated up there, and then we're finding he's dropping back into midfield to try and pick the ball up, or he's pulling out wide. Then we've got no one replacing him in that central area. If we went 4-2-3-1, we could do that. But at the same time, he's got to take his chances, because Pedence's put one on a plate for him, and his first touch is awful. It's took him into a position where the goalkeeper's closing in on him, and he hasn't finished it. So we did create a couple of chances last night, and the chances that you would expect players of that quality to take. But they're few and far between, aren't they? We don't open teams up. I mean, if you watch other teams play, they move the ball so quickly through midfield, and they're onto the attacking lines, and they're onto your defensive areas, and it's constant pass and move. You've got players interchanging. We look pretty rigid at the moment. We look a bit static. There's no one really putting into positions, and it's hurting us because we're very predictable, and I think we're very easy to defend against because you know exactly what we're going to do.
Do you think as well, Tyler, there's an issue with Guedes and Neto, that they both look better playing on the left? Because Guedes prefers to play on that side and cut in. Neto, for me, probably does his best work on the left. As much as I love that goal at Southampton, he does probably look more dangerous when he's playing on the left-hand side. Is that a bit of an issue going forward?
Well, if it is, it shouldn't be, should it? Because if you've done your scouting properly and you've done all your due diligence, then it shouldn't be a problem. So I don't really buy that. I think if you're a wide forward player of the quality of those two, you should be able to operate on either side. There's no reason why they can't switch every 15 minutes. There's no reason why. Someone said the word fluid. We should have a fluid front three or four that are interchanging, that are changing positions. Gone are the days where the right winger just stands on the right wing and waits for the ball and crosses it in. Football's changed, hasn't it? So I'm not buying that. Players of that quality, for me, should be able to interchange, play off each other, come inside, go out wide. I think there's maybe a bit of a confidence issue, and rightly so, because we don't score goals. I think we talked about Neto seems to have lost that half a yard of pace he had, and that killer burn off the fullback. He looked quite encouraging last night. Nice to see him take a couple of shots on and try and get involved a bit more. So hopefully that'll come with time. But to answer your question, I'm not using that as a reason. I think they should be able to interplay between them.
Yeah, I'll take that as well. I just thought it was interesting because I know Neto looks like he prefers the left, and Guedes, from his history as playing, plays off the left or just off the forward. A moment that, I mean, I know we're overlapping with games now, but on Sunday, I just thought we just, because we hadn't won a game, we tucked in. We just hoped for the best, and just looking for a positive, as I always, you know what I'm like, always trying a positive. I thought defensively they were excellent. The two centre backs, I thought, dealt with everything really well. I thought Saul, as soon as he came out and started being brave and collecting crosses, that was it. Then he was doing it every single time. Defensively, he looked very good. I
think Collins was a little bit nervy for early on. He gave the ball away a couple of times, but he settled down. But there's nothing wrong with the unit, and they're protected well in front. And I say it's the amount of goals we concede isn't an issue. It's just that we're just not creating anything. And of course, if the second goal it counts, then we'd probably then come away and say, like, the season's got lift off and what a great performance. But the thing is as well, I think, I don't know what you guys think, but from what I've seen so far live, and also, watching all the games on the telly, I think this league looks stronger this year. I don't know. I just think it's a really, really good league, and there's some really good teams in it, and a lot of them, like we have now, have invested. Yeah,
there's some good teams. I mean, I think Fulham have had a surprise start. They've beat a couple of teams. They've certainly ran Liverpool close. They weren't great at Molineux, but they give us a game. They look a decent side, and for a team that's been yo-yoing now, they look like they've got stability that they might be able to hold their own here. So they look better than I thought. We thought. I think Bournemouth. I mean, it doesn't say much about Wolves last night, but they look like they might have been in trouble. Forest have got to get 414,000 players to gel in the next few weeks. And then Everton as well under Lampard, they look a bit, and then you're looking at Wolves and Villa as well. So yeah, it's.
I'll have Lampard for long, will they?
That
takes us on to the another decision that has to be made soon.
Well, there was a really good comment here. Daniel Hodge. We'll be a toxic Molineux if we lose. Where will the next win be coming from? And do Fosun pull the plug on Lage? Now, I'm guessing that it means if you don't win on Saturday. I don't know. Are you going to sack a manager when you've got Man City and Liverpool coming up? Is a new manager going to want to take charge when you've got two of the hardest games in European football? I don't know. I think he's probably got 3 games regardless of what happens, to be honest. And then if it's really bad, then probably so. But I don't want to think that far ahead. I want him to acknowledge that when it went to 4-2-3-1 far too late on last night, that Wolves actually looked like they could be good. I want to see Nunez with the ball deeper. I want to see next to Neves picking the ball up so he can have runners in front of him, as opposed to playing more of an attacking midfield, which I don't think is his natural position at Sporting. I might be wrong, but I saw most of his best work coming from picking the ball up from deep and driving, and then that would draw men into him and create space for others. But we shall see. Other stuff.
You're saying there you want to see him react. We could see from 5 minutes in that formation wasn't going to work, and we should have gone 4-2-3-1. So
that's why you're putting it on my podcast, lads.
But you would expect your manager. You wouldn't expect your manager to wait till 73, 74 minutes to make that change. And as soon as we did make that change, we looked dangerous. Then we looked like we created a few chances. So is he learning? Because we do seem to be repeating the same mistakes all the time. That game was crying out for a 4-2-3-1. If it didn't work at the start, you want to go 4-3-3 at the start, you think that's going to work, fine. I know Liverpool ripped them apart with that formation, but that wasn't working. So to stick with it to the 74, for me, that's just a stubbornness that ends up getting you sacked.
Yeah, you're completely right. And we're going to go backwards and forwards a lot here with the game. But I want to talk about the Newcastle game a bit more as well, Knocker. Daz, we'll get your take on. There's a couple of decisions in the game. The disallowed goal, which I think if Neto uses his body better and not his hand and pushes him, I think he gets away with that. But mainly the red card that wasn't. For one, I don't understand how that's not a red card. I mean, I'd love to get yours, guys. You got your takes on that as well.
I thought Harry Kane should have got sent off the week before for his breakdown Ruben Neves's calf, which they saw it and they gave him a yellow for it. So once you've seen it, that's violent conduct. Of course, it's Harry Kane, England captain. It was a red card on Sunday, no question. It was a terrible, terrible challenge.
So I mean, he's lucky if his leg's fully planted there and he proper lands. That's a season ender. Tyler, your take on the potential red?
I actually don't think it is, and I'm normally the guy that I sort of said about the Trippier one when he just side down De Bruyne. I think that's a red card, because I think that's just totally unprofessional play. I thought the centre half made a genuine attempt just to nick the ball, and I think it was one of those in real time. I don't think it looked that bad, but when you slowed it down, it did. So,
but if you're making a genuine attempt and you're that high off the ground.
I don't think he was that off the ground. I don't think he was reckless. I don't think he was out of control. He didn't leave. He wasn't 2-footed off the floor. So for those reasons, I think the yellow card was the right decision. And let's not be biased, Ryan. I also think Newcastle should have a penalty.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's a clear shirt pug in the box. Yeah. That's a penalty all day long.
Yeah.
So I actually think we rode it a little bit. Different game than this. If we go 1-0 down, we're up against it even more. So for me, my opinion is it was a yellow, but I can see why people are saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Nocky, how many times have we seen a challenge like that be a red card? It's the consistency that drives us mad, isn't it?
I think more importantly, how many times have we not seen that be a red card? I mean, I remember Paul Pogba down here last season with exactly the same tackle, and then Greenwood ends up scoring the winner, doesn't he? So
that wasn't even a foul, was it? That wasn't even as a free kick.
I mean, and he stood there watching it as well.
I mean, for me, I think it's one of those. I'm kind of with Tyler a little bit on this one. I think it's not the most pretty challenge, but if you slow any tackle down, you can maybe turn it into a red card. I think
that's a fair point. If
the ref sends him off, though, VAR won't overrule it for me. So I think it is fully with the referee on that. He could have gone either way. I always look at it, how would I feel if it was a Wolves player? If it was for me, I'd be a little bit annoyed if one of my players got sent off for that tackle, if I'm being honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's great that we don't all agree on it, because it's more fun than it is everyone just agreeing all the time. So for me, it's a red. I think if you're in the modern game, and if you're that high, okay, Tyler, maybe it wasn't. It was high enough to be a cut down his leg, like above his calf. That's pretty high for me.
What I was going to say is this, as I've said it before in this podcast, this highlights the challenge with VAR and why it will never work. Because there's 4 of us here, 2 of us think it's a red and 2 of us don't. It's a subjective decision. It's not black and white. It's not over the line or not. It's opinion. And Knocker's right. If he gives it a red, it never gets changed. If he gives the shirt full of penalty, it never gets changed. So we don't want to talk about VAR, but that's why it just doesn't really work in football, because it's all about opinions.
And if he sends him to look at it, he overrules that decision and sends him off, because he's already telling him he's wrong, isn't he? So the fact he didn't send him to have a look at it.
So where's the threshold there? Where's the threshold to say?
We all know.
He goes over and has a look at the second goal, doesn't he? But he doesn't have a look for the tackle. So
we all know if that's at another stadium at a certain point in a game, right? With a lot of people screaming, the manager doing backflips and gambols on the sideline, we know that's going to be a red card. I think sometimes, and I don't like to see it, but you see others do it, and we need to be more aggressive. We need to be screaming for that red card. Go and have a look at the monitor. Look what you've done to my leg. This was a red card last week. Why isn't it a red card now? You see other teams, and I say this reluctantly because I don't like to see it, but when others are doing it and they're influencing games, why aren't we doing it? Why are we being too nice?
But Raul did that yesterday and got booked, didn't he? Because he screamed at the referee about a foul.
I thought he got booked for his bad touch, to be honest.
He probably should have done. But it's one of them, isn't it? I mean, are they going to reverse the decision just because you're having a go at them? I think at some stadiums probably they will. I don't think we're at that stage. I think if we do that against Liverpool or Man City in a couple of weeks, we know what the end result's going to be of that. But I don't know. I just think
it's still bottom. Then they've got beat, haven't they? It's just come up. Man United have beat Leicester. So.
Yeah,
it's a good job.
We're scraping off bottom somehow.
It's one of those situations. I think.
I like to call us joint 17th.
It's not a red card for me, but you've seen them given. I'd put it in that category.
So yeah, I mean, we talked about this before. I'm hopeful of getting I've talked about this for a while, 2 ex-Premier League referees on for a separate podcast to talk about VAR, to give sort of they're not guilty, their side of the story and their take. So hopefully we can do that in the near future. That'll be a good, fun podcast to do. Just moving away from Newcastle then, as I think everyone agrees, a point was it about fair in the end? Did we do enough to win? Probably not. Did we do enough to lose? Did I do enough to lose? No. So yeah, moving on to last night. The 3 of us, Daz, we all watched it together. There was so much hope and expectation. I won't even tell you, we did a joint bet before the game. That looked really silly very quickly. So the bookies won again there. But without playing great, Wolves could have won that game 3-0. Off the bar, Raul's clean through, Pedent's off the line. Is it just bad luck last night, or is it bad play and bad luck? Daz.
How many clear-cut chances did we create? The Nunez one wasn't a chance. It was.
I'd say the other 2 were clear-cut. Yeah. It's
the bar. There's the Raul one for me is the only clear-cut chance, and I know that. And then there's a scramble when Pedence, did nothing wrong. It's the target. It's cleared off the line. Not good enough. You could do anything with your stats. Not good enough. It's just for a team who were in the mess they were in. They would have been so fragile, but I just don't think from the off we started at the right tempo. We knew what they were going to do, and we just didn't have enough. I keep going back to the word tempo, urgency, imagination. We never really got round the back of them in the first 75 minutes. Not good enough.
So, I mean, we're going to talk about this later with a few other people as well, but we need to talk about Raul and his influence on games at the moment. I love that man like he's a member of my own family. The moments he's given this football club, he almost gave his life for the football club playing. Tremendous human. But last night was a massive concern for me. I mean, he took a first bad touch, it was a second bad touch, then it was a poor finish. It doesn't seem to be attacking the ball. I mean, the basics of football for me, when you're putting a cross in any area of the pitch, you go and meet the ball, you attack it, whether that's with your feet, your head, but your aim is to try and get contact and put your body between the ball and the defender. That's not happening now. So you really thought as well, maybe last night would have been a real push because obviously the new signing might lose my shirt. What we're going to do with this problem, Knocker?
I mean, when he wasn't scoring previous for us, he was still influencing games, wasn't he? He was still having an effect on what was going on the pitch, and I'm not seeing that at the moment. I just think he's not involved. He's lost that spark. He's lost that edge that he used to have, and
which is understandable.
It's understandable, but how long do you let that go on? I mean, he's been brilliant for us, and some of the memories he's given us. I mean, the goal against Man United in the Cup, and those sort of. The goal at Wembley, I know it went pear-shaped after that, but some of the memories he's given us have been absolutely incredible. But is there room for sentiment in football, or do we have to make a very difficult decision now that we've brought another striker in? Because I'm a big Raul fan, and I really hope that he comes back and he gets back to that electric form that he was in the first season that we signed him. But there's no signs of that, is there? There's no. You don't look at him and think, I can see it coming back. I can see what he's doing. At the moment, I'm seeing a player who's completely lost his confidence. Doesn't look like he can finish. I mean, he's had one-on-ones like that, and they're bread and butter to him, aren't they? He takes a touch, and then he either chips it over the keeper, or he slides it into the bottom corner. He looked like he panicked. The first touch took the ball away from him, and then it was a case of, I've just got to get something on this, and he ends up knocking it wide. And I just think there's an element of him that's absolutely gone. Can we take him out the firing line? Can we give him a little bit of a break? Can we give him a little bit of support up there just to build him back up a little bit? But for me, I think we're at a point where the decision's got to be made now that we need to try something a little bit different up front, because it's just not working. Yeah,
it's a tough one, isn't it? We all love Raul, don't we, Tyler? He's such a great bloke, and I know his celebration it made himself look a bit silly with the celebration when it got called off on Saturday. But you know what? If he's doing that for his kids and he's having some fun, good luck to him. I'm all for it, but. Do you see him starting on top on Saturday, Tyler?
I'd hope not. And I've obviously said how much on this podcast I love the guy, more than anyone. But you just said, Ryan, it's a tough one. Not for me, it isn't. He's out the side. He's not performing, and Wolves don't look good for it. Not because hit the nail on the head. We can't be sentimental, unfortunately. That'll get us nowhere. We've just said about being nasty and not very nice. Well. We need to do that ourselves with our team selection. So for me, unfortunately, he's out the side. Fresh ideas, big man up top. No brainer for me. He starts. Give the crowd a bit of a lift. There's not much to be excited about at the moment. Everyone's buzzing when there's a new number 9 playing up front for your team, isn't there? So for me, it's not a tough one. He's out and the new guy's in.
Daz, your take on Raul Jimenez?
Yeah, I mean, you said that you thought maybe last night it would give him a bit of a, kick up the whatever's, knowing there's a new centre forward coming. I don't think it's a lack of effort at all. I think if anything, he's probably trying a little bit too hard now. He's struggling, isn't he? And that you can't go away from the fact that he still hasn't scored a headed goal since he returned. And I get it all, and we're all on the same page regarding that. And so maybe I alluded to it earlier. Maybe somewhere down the line he may have a slightly different role in the team where he isn't expected to be putting his head where other people are putting their boots, but. That's what we need right now. So for me, you've just spent £16 million on a goal scorer when we can't. He's proverbial. So he has to start on Saturday for me, 100%.
Do we think he will though? Because we're all on the same page with that. But do we think he will? Bruno.
I think Bruno's personally don't. Now, isn't he?
I don't see how now he can't start Sasha on Saturday because the fans didn't turn last night, but Nocky, your dad was there. The fans weren't happy in the away end. We weren't happy just watching it. So folk weren't happy, and we need goals, and things need to change. You said it earlier on, Tyler. We all saw what needed to change, but it didn't happen. He needs to do that on Saturday. We need goals. At the moment, Raul doesn't look like he's got a goal. We've got a guy on the bench that 2.5, 3 years ago had one of the most deadly partnerships with a centre forward that could head a ball. As Daz said earlier on, Traoré in the team, a 6'7" centre forward, might be a little bit basic and away from what we're going, but we need to find something that works.
I'm still not convinced he'll make that change. I've got to be honest.
The only thing I say was, what did he sign? Was it Wednesday night? Probably haven't trained properly today, and tomorrow's Friday. So the only thing is, has he had enough time? But then the Newcastle striker started last night and bangs on in, doesn't he? Sometimes.
Yeah, he had two, didn't he? He had two, didn't he? Really. Before we are going into the second half hour pay and spend the summer budget on Daz Hale. Daz, before we move on, I just want to get your take on the summer window, please.
Well, I've just been I'll hop off things. So I haven't even had my tea yet. Well, if you look at it, I mean, we bought Wang in as well, didn't we? But
yeah, don't count that.
Yeah, let's not talk about that.
So there's Kalajic 16, Guedes 27, Nunez 42, Collins 20. Hopefully, Boubacar Traore on loan. Neves is here. Matinho signed a new contract. Neto's still here. But then you look at the ones who've gone out, and we've got that money for Bolly, £2 million plus, 30 odd million for Morgan Gibbs White, 13 million now for Dendoncker. So many players out on loan. And I think so many people, including me, were getting really, really frustrated a month ago. If someone had said to you then, we would end up with this team, it's a complete refresh. It's not Nuno's team anymore now. It's Bruno's team. It's Bruno's squad. And I'm personally, if you'd have said to me back in May, this is what you'd do, I'd have been happy with it. And I still think I'd have been delighted with it. And I still think there's a question mark over depth and balance. And as I say, there's so many players have gone out on loan as well that we might be a little bit short in certain areas. But I'm thrilled with it. And I just don't think now that there's any excuse anymore. Now, this team now and this manager now have got to start to deliver and got to start delivering quickly.
Before you go then, Daz, rate the transfer window out of 10 for us, pal.
I'm giving it a 9 personally, especially after where we were a month ago. I don't know what more. If somebody said to you at the end of the season, Neves will stay, Traore will stay, Neto will stay, and we'll have a net spend of around about £75 million net spend. That is, I don't think anyone would have believed you. He was calling for the tools to do the job. And I'm not advocating he goes, by the way. It might sound like that because it's a real debate. That's a real split. You hold your nerve, or do you? It's stick or twist time. I mean, I keep changing my mind on that. But they give him what he wants. They've put the money. We said we'd find out this summer how ambitious folks are. Well, there's clearly still whether things have changed behind the scenes. I don't know, but you can't ask for more than that. We spent 115 million quid, haven't we?
Yeah, it's been good. Daz, I know you want your tea, and thank you so much. BBCW, he wants another drink. BBCWM's Daz Hale. You can join him on the football phone-in from weekdays at 6:00, and of course hosting the Saturday football show for BBCWM. Daz, I'll see you soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much. Enjoy.
Cheers, Daz. Cheers. We're going to one guest out and one guest in now. We're going to bring in our next guest, who is Nick Goff, football data expert and Wolves social media influencer. Good evening, Nick.
Hello, Frank C.
He's got to go. Has he got to go, Frank C?
How you doing? All right. You threw me a bit of a dummy. You threw me a bit of a dummy here, Ryan. I thought we were on. I thought we were going to be on one of those spaces thing where there was no camera. I've had to go and get dressed.
Sorry, mate. I thought I'd made that clear. Apologies.
I know, but I read your message this morning when I was still hungover.
Good night then. Apparently you were doing some moves last night, enjoying yourself.
Yeah, I ended up with Big Dog, most people I know, Andy Barrett, in some nightclub. We were about double the age of everyone else in there. Tremendous
effort. And what else are you going to do after a 0-0 draw in Bournemouth?
I know. Yeah. Good night though. Long trip home.
Let's delve into that tremendous football brain of yours. Just start easing you in gently. I'd just love to get your take on this window so far. Well, I say so far, we've got an hour left.
Well, if you go back to what we thought was going to happen 3 or 4 weeks ago, when we were all desperate just to get Christian Benteke in because it would be another body.
That's a good.
Turned out pretty bloody well, hasn't it? In the end, all told, the two massive names have come in. And neither of them have quite hit the ground running yet, but you've got to be confident both will. Nathan Collins has settled in really, really well, I think. He got a little bit of criticism the other day, and I couldn't really believe it. I think he settled in really well.
We talked about that on the group chat. I think Nathan Collins and Max Kilman, considering this is a brand new Premier League partnership, playing a team with a new back four, I think that partnership looks really good. I mean, Kilman doesn't even look like he's had to try so far this season. It's been easy for him. But Collins, 21, looks good.
Yeah. So the one concern for me is that I think that the whole point about letting Conor Cody go was that he wasn't, we all know that he wasn't quite suited to the way they want to play now. But by letting him go, it opened up the opportunity to bring in one more. So we had 3 players who were absolutely assured and experienced in a back 4. And we haven't done that. We've got 2. And if we get an injury, it'll be Totti probably. And he's unproven. So that will be a bit of a risk. And we are walking on eggshells a little bit of centre-back. But with the Traore one today, it looks like we're pretty much okay. I mean, he looks a potentially hell of a player, this Traore, by the way.
Yeah, so for anyone that isn't aware, I'm sure you are, Boubacar Traore from Metz, centre defensive mid or centre mid, 9.5 million, option to buy. We've got a loan first. I'd imagine there'll be a substantial loan fee, and if we want him, 9.5 million. Haven't really seen a lot of him. Looks a very good athlete. He scored an absolute screamer last. He only got 1 goal. Looks an absolute screamer. I don't know if he's the most creative, but he certainly looks like someone that could get from the highlights, they could get up and down and you can travel with the ball. So yeah, that seems really sensible, Nick, but we haven't talked about this yet. But it comes as a bit of a strange one for me. The departure of Dendoncker. And I just want to get your take on it. We haven't talked about this much today, Tyler and Knocker, only on the group chat, but just Tyler, your take on the Dendoncker's departure, particularly to a rival.
I said to Daz, didn't I, before Nick got on, I think it's, before we start, sorry, it's almost a strange signing for Villa than it is us letting them go. I don't see where they benefit from a player like that, really. Obviously, we know we can cover 2 positions, centre-back, centre-mid. So I wouldn't have wanted him to go if Traore hadn't come in, but now we've made that deal, I'm comfortable in him leaving, really. I don't think he's the sort of footballer that fits into Bruno's way of playing, maybe not technical enough. Covers a lot of ground, does a job, 6 out of 10 most weeks, but it's one of them, and it's 13 million, a year left with another year. I think it's probably a good bit of business selling him, to be honest.
Knocker, your take on Dendoncker going to Villa?
Yeah, similar to Chris, really. I mean, I would have liked to have seen us get a little bit more in for him. He's a Belgium international, he plays regularly for them. I would have liked to have seen 15 to 20, but he's a good utility player, but he's not really where we want to be. I think if we can bring in Traore, who's got a little bit more about him, a little bit more legs, and then we know the 3 who are going to be the primary 3 in midfield for us. So I'm fine with him going. I'm with Chris. I'm surprised Villa want him. I know that they're maybe losing Douglas Luiz, so do they think he can fit into that role? But I don't think he improves Villa, so I think it's a better deal for us than it is for them.
Talking about Belgian internationals, Nick, Jason Denayer, out of contract. Oops. Tremendous. I thought you did a party trick then. It's Steve Irwin does the party tricks. But we were linked with him. It went cold. It looked like we'd signed the ex-Albion and West Ham centre-back. But Jason Denayer hasn't signed a contract anymore. Yeah, free transfer. Lyon, centre-back. I think 35 caps for Belgium. Can play right back if needed and defensive midfielder. I mean, that's a big option, isn't it? That's someone that could fill that gap.
Yeah, so because he's a free agent at the moment, that's not governed by the deadline tonight. So he could still come in over the weekend if they wanted him to. He hasn't played a lot of football for quite a long time, so he might take a while to get up to speed. And I guess they're thinking the season pauses in November. So if he's going to take a month to get up to speed, is there actually any point in doing it? So I would be surprised if he comes in, actually, but I might be wrong. On Dendoncker, one thing I would say about him is that he was on a huge salary at Bournemouth. And I think getting him off the wage bill, because they had the opportunity to extend it by a year, but I don't think they want to, because he's on 75, 80 grand a week. I think Dendoncker was at Wolves, more than some of the other players.
It's unbelievable, isn't it?
Wow.
And Aston Villa are a bit muggy in the transfer market. They'll come and they won't balk at these players on that kind of money. They'll pay it. But I don't think there's many mugs around in the market anymore. And so I think you've got to take this money off someone while someone's willing to pay it. So I think in 12 months' time, no one would be. So they had the opportunity to recoup some money from him. Okay, the fee at first glance probably looks a little bit below what we would have liked, but I can kind of understand why they've done it, especially with this option to buy of Traore at 9 million. The big problem we had with Trincao was the option to buy was so high that he's come in, he's had a season. Right, these players can take a lot of time to settle in. And my problem with the Trincao thing was that you almost, you train a player for Barcelona, you give them a year's experience here, and then they go off and they show what they've learned somewhere else, and that won't need to be the case here because it'll only be 9 million to make the deal permanent. And we put ourselves in a really tricky spot with Trincao, I thought, but this one will be much more straightforward. He's only, you haven't, a 21-year-old hasn't got to show a great deal to spend 9 million on him next summer, have they? As long as he's got the potential there, that they'll do that deal.
Absolutely. And I don't really, I mean, I don't know a lot about him. I know from the little bit of research I've done and a couple of the videos I've seen, but I don't imagine he's going to get a lot of game time. I'd imagine we might see him in the cup. I'd imagine he'll definitely be on the bench. Well, that's definitely been the case. I don't see him starting many games soon, but at Christmas, when you've got thick and fast games coming, then maybe so. So he's not someone expecting to have an immediate impact. But like you said, Nick, he's at that kind of value in the modern market. It's a punt worth taking.
Yeah, they can ease him in gently, but also we've got 3 lads that we assume are all going to a World Cup. They might come back late December, early January, a bit jaded, and then we'll look to rotate there, and we'll need him for that. And also in the run up to the World Cup, it was human nature for these guys. It could be the last chance to win a World Cup with Ronaldo's probably final tournament. It's human nature to have one eye on it, and we might see a little dip in midfield performances in November, and then he'll be able to come in and freshen it up there. So I'm pleased he's in. I think he'll be ready to go. Just watching little bits of him and looking at some numbers, he looks like a really good signing, I think.
Just keeping it on the topic of outgoings, Nick. Obviously, Cody out on loan, Fabio Silva out on loan, Gibbs White sold, now Dendoncker sold, Bolly sold. Is this the kind of summer you're expecting departures-wise? Because I know there's a few of those names there I've mentioned to the lads. I'd have been happily sold a little while ago. So, what's your take on the outgoing situation at Molineux?
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. That a lot of things that have happened in this window maybe could have happened 1 or 2 windows earlier. And I can't help but thinking the Fabio Silva loan would have been much better a year ago as well. Maybe there were no offers. Maybe that a move like this just wasn't possible for him a year ago. But it does feel like he lost a year really last year. But that's gone, and he's got to get. And he obviously had a great start where he is, and hopefully we'll get a player back in 12 months. Just part of me thinks it would have been nice if he could have had that move last year and be back with us now.
Yeah, I mean, not everyone agrees, but I'm a Fabio fan. I think there's a footballer in there. I think with game times this year, I mean, there's even a chance. I mean, if he carries on that ridiculous scoring run, we could get our money back, and he might never play for Wolves again. That's a possibility. But Tyler, your take on the outgoing so far? I mean, we've talked a lot on the group chat and laughed and been surprised at some of the stuff, but yeah, we haven't really talked about outgoings enough. So yeah, just your take on the window for outgoings.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you both. I think some could have probably been done sooner. Not concerned at any of the players that we've lost, really. Bolly, best years behind him. Gibbs White, bit of a show pony for me and didn't really want to be here, so you cash in and make the money there. The players that left, over the summer on the free transfers were the right decisions. Ruddy, Marcel, Sace. I don't think there's been one player leave that we could really be disappointed in. We've recouped a fair bit of cash as well. I agree with Nick. Fabio needed the loan, and like you said, he could have had that last year in hindsight and came back now fit and firing. But yeah, I think you look at them all. You asked us, didn't you, Ryan, earlier, are you sort of disgruntled with any of them that have gone, and would you have changed anything? And I think the answer is no. Cody was the one that obviously surprised a few and splits the fans still now, doesn't it? And you turn on Sky Sports News, I was listening to it before, and they're bigging Cody up as a footballer and as a player, but it's time to move on, isn't it? Like Daz said, the Nuno era's gone now. His players have now gone, apart from there. So it's time to look forward. Absolutely.
Nocky, I think we're all going to think this is going to be a clean strike and 4 out of 4 here. But personally, I mean, Dendonker's the one I may have kept, but Nick's raised a really good point. Like 70, 75 grand a week, not going to extend. That's a massive amount of money off the wage bill to get a player in who's probably on less than half those wages and 7 years younger. So yeah, for me, a great window. Okay.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, they've proved me wrong because I was expecting a very even keel in terms of outgoings and incomings financially, and they've spent some real money. So they've definitely proved me wrong. I think the outgoings have been sensible. Gibbs White in particular, I think we got phenomenal money for him. He's not going to be worth that in 12 months. He's already playing up at Forest, dancing in Phil Foden's executive box after getting thumped 6-0. So I think he was very smart offloading him. I think the Cody one, I think Bruno wanted that move. I think he needed to break that click up, and he's managed to do that successfully. So I think the outgoings have been, I've got no concerns with that. My only concerns is we have left ourselves a little bit shallow defensively if something was to go wrong there. But all in all, I think that the business that we've done has been really good. And offloading Dendonk, bringing in a player who's potentially going to go relatively quickly, I'm all for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just wrapping it up in terms of the departures, I'm very, very happy with the departures. I haven't been the biggest fan of some of those performances of some of the players that have departed, just to put it politely. But yeah, the Gibbs White one for me, it looks like Wolves will probably get 35 million, and I think that is simply outstanding.
Phenomenal money.
We don't
Phenomenal money for a player who's only ever shone in the Championship.
Yeah, I don't think we give enough credit to the club sometimes. They've had a lot of stick recently, and they've probably deserved it. But the outgoing business for me has been, I mean, it probably won't happen as well, but up to nearly 5 million for Willy Bolly. This is serious business, good bit. I mean, in today's market, that's not a lot of money, but to be potentially recouping the best part of 50 million, they probably won't happen with those add-ons, but potentially for those two footballers that wouldn't have been Wolves' best 11, is absolutely fantastic business. Nick, I want to throw a question at you, a little curveball on. Adam Matthews has asked it, and I'd love to get your take on it. Do you think Bruno is the right manager for the club?
This is, again, where I feel like we almost lost a year last year, because I don't think we know the right answer. I think he's now got the players. And all this stuff about Saturday being such a huge game with the two that are coming after, I don't think that's really helpful, because I don't think we can make a decision on Bruno until he's had 3 months with finally got the players he wants. The problem is that in 3 months' time, if it's going badly and it turns out that he's not the right man, we're going to be in a bad situation, aren't we? Mm. So I think this is a little bit of our own making, that we didn't do quite enough 12 months ago that we should have done. I guess Fosun weren't in the right place post-COVID to do some of the things they've done now, and obviously we're hearing things about investment coming from other places as well. So we are where we are with that, but I still think the jury's very much out on Bruno, and the next couple of months are needed to make that decision. He hasn't helped himself with a few in-game decisions. Before I came on, I heard you say earlier that we could have made those changes 20-25 minutes earlier last night, and I couldn't possibly disagree with that. And my big issue at the moment is style-wise and style and tempo, and how are we going to how do we create attacking opportunities? Because we don't press, so we're not going to win the ball high and create chances by winning the ball off the opposition, and we don't move the ball very quickly through the thirds. And when Traore's not on the pitch, we don't really have wide men hugging the touchline, because they both like to come and sort of sit inside a little bit. So we're not getting very wide a lot. I'm not seeing how we are, what the plan is to create a lot of goal scoring opportunities at the moment.
Do you know what? I mean, you might disagree with me, but I think there's a reluctance to drop Moutinho, and I love Moutinho, and I'm not saying I want him dropped, but I don't think he's a player that can play in a 4-3-3. He's someone I want sitting in with Neves or Nunes as one of the holding two when there's a number 10 in front. And I might be wrong, people may question that. I just don't think he's got the legs to play there. He's got the technical ability to play anywhere he wants, but in a 4-3-3, it's a demanding situation of a left or right midfielder. You've got to be doing a bit of everything. You've got to be supporting your fullback, and you've also got to be getting forward as well. And I just think that's a lot to ask of someone. At that, although he's in great nick, yeah, I just don't think that's his position.
I think the thing on the midfield last night, I don't know if it was a one-off. I mean, we commented, and I don't know if Nick got a different view of the game, but Neves was so deep, wasn't he? Especially in the first half. And it's almost like we'd almost gone back to that back three. Admittedly, the centre halves were very high up the pitch, but Neves was almost the last man. And I think you're sort of right, Ryan. It's not quite working, the three of them. I mean, they're all three individual fabulous footballers. So it should. You think on paper it should work, doesn't it? But the
it's beautiful. It's beautiful on paper.
Doesn't seem quite right, does it? And I think last night was a good example of that.
We called it. We all said it. Everyone could see. You changed to 4-2-3-1. It made all the difference. But then you've got to drop Martinho, who's still on 100 grand a week. Is Bruno under pressure to play all those three players, those three superstars? Is there something in the background, or do you think Bruno will go, well, I need to do this now? Because clearly, I mean, you have this one, Knocker. Clearly, Wolves are against teams who I would expect Wolves to have a game against, to perform against, like Bournemouth. I'd expect them to be more attacking. So surely you drop one of those midfielders out and play a 10, or even two up front.
I would have done, yeah. But I think the concerning thing for me is we've only had 3 players who've scored this season, and 2 of them are sat on the bench. Pedence should be on every game for me. I think he's our most creative player. I don't agree that Martinho, that he's under pressure to play Martinho. I don't get that impression that they put pressure on Bruno to tell him who to play. I don't think that's right.
Not so much that. But he's like the senior man at the club now. He's the second most Portuguese capped player.
Yeah, I don't think that matters. I don't think Bruno plays favourites at all. I think he picks teams that he thinks are going to be effective. I don't think he's scared to be ruthless. I think we've seen that. I just think he got it wrong. I think there's I'm kind of with Nick that we need to give him a little bit more time, but yesterday I probably would have sacked him at half time if I'm being honest. But I think
I was going to say you weren't saying that last night, so
no, I think there's a lot of red flags for him for me. I think his substitutions have killed us 2 or 3 times this season. I think his starting 11 have been very concerning at times, and I think we spent the whole pre-season in 4-2-3-1, then switched to 4-3-3 because we signed Nunez. I just think I'm not sure he knows exactly what he wants to do at the moment. I don't see a clear plan of what he thinks is going to work. And I do get a lot of red flags from him. And I think if we do lose to Southampton, or we don't beat Southampton, I do think the pressure's really going to be on, because he had the excuse last season that it wasn't his team, it wasn't his formation. Well, now it absolutely is his team and his formation. He's picking how he wants to play. And in terms of goals, we're worse off than we were last season. So I think they're already going to be looking at him and asking a few questions, if I'm being honest.
So in terms of a win, Nick, Saturday changes everything for me. I think the pressure's off. You've got potential to play a great big centre forward. He scores. Molyneux's a different place. We're buzzing. If he makes his debut, I think there's less pressure on the manager then, because I think there'll be more encouragement than there would be anger. I think if he goes 4-2-3-1 against, I mean, that could be tough against Southampton. I don't know if they play 2 in the midfield or 3, depending on who they're playing against. But if we don't win Saturday, where do we go from there? I mean, we talked about it earlier on, but with them 2 fixtures, it looks hard then, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it will be hard, but the fixture list is what it is. We knew those 2 games were coming, and you just can't put everything on. Can't put all your eggs in one basket on Saturday and just say it's almost like complete crisis if we don't win Saturday. It's too early in the season for that. Albeit after the City and Liverpool game, we'll be in a bad position. But it'll still be middle of September. It's not crisis time yet. On the Martinho thing, I think I can see why you're so tempted to try and get all 3 of them. We've got 3 fantastic midfielders. Why wouldn't you want to have a good look at them 4 or 5 times in the same team? And if it doesn't work, if it's not working in a few weeks' time, then you can move to your 4-2-3-1. Martinho's going to need some rests throughout the season anyway, so you can't play 4-3-3 every week unless you want to bring Traore in, which you may well do. But I do think we'll see more of the 4-2-3-1. I hope we do anyway, because that's how I believe we're going to progress and start creating a lot of chances with that extra. That the whole idea of moving away from a back 3 was to have one extra man higher up the pitch. And when you play the 4-3-3 at the moment, as we've all said, where Neves is so deep last night, the only way you can counterbalance that is if one of your 2 central midfielders is almost pushing on to be like a 10. And it didn't happen. So we're playing away to the worst team in the league. We're having lots of possession, but none of it is threatening enough, is it?
I think, I don't know why he is, and I might be wrong on this, Nick, but I see Matheus Nunes as a defensive midfielder that wins the ball back and he travels with the ball. He's somebody that can get forward and score a goal, but he does as much good defensive work as he does attacking. Most of his good work from the highlight reels, and when he played against us, he likes to get the ball deep, and then that brings an extra man into midfield, and it should create space. I think he's starting too high up the pitch. Now that might sound like I'm being negative, but I want him collecting the ball and driving from deep.
In which case, it really ought to be Moutinho, the one that's the most advanced. But that hasn't happened either, has it?
No.
I think another way of looking at this, Ryan, I'll ask you this question. We haven't won a game. Is it 14 games now? I think it's 14 games since we won a match. Does any other manager in the Premier League survive that? Because we're talking knee-jerk reactions. It wouldn't be knee-jerk based on where we are. So would any other manager survive that?
There wouldn't be many. I don't think there'd be many. But
so it wouldn't be a panic decision to sack him after Southampton, would it? If we're being totally, if we go 16 games without a win, that's not panicking. That's a balanced decision for me.
I've got a question here that's going to go into that. I've just remembered it from Ted, and this is a really good question. I'm going to drop it in now then. And before I take much more of your time, Nick, I know you've come on tonight and you were naked thinking it was a space. So thank you for getting dressed for us. Ted P, to what extent will Fossen already be looking at managerial alternatives, and how likely is it that will be a both Portuguese and Mendes client? That's a great question. Nick, you can have that one.
So the first part of it, in any successful business, there's succession planning. So there should be in-house with Scott Sellers or whoever, or Jeff or whoever it sits with, a list of, if our manager leaves tomorrow, what's our plan? That should exist, and that exists at well-run football clubs. Are we one? Yeah, I think we are. That we question a few things, but generally we're a well-run club. So yes, they will know in-house a list of 3, 4, 5 possibles if Bruno was gone. It's not going to happen. But if he got offered a job somewhere else tomorrow and walked, they would have a plan of what to do. So yes. Will it be another Portuguese, another Mendes client? Well, on that, honestly, who knows? I just don't know that.
Yeah, I'd remember Ted, who's a regular contributor to the show. I remember that question. I just thought it was good timing. So for me, my take, I think they will be looking. They'll be aware. If it goes wrong early and badly, Molyneux might not be very pleasant on Saturday. But I generally don't believe we've played badly in a game yet. I just don't think we've played well. I think it's been lots of mediocre performances that have just been all right. There's been moments that have been good, but can we honestly say, guys, so before I transfer Nick out and bring Steve Herman in, just have we played badly so far this year, or is it just not been good? Nick, let's get your take on that.
Right, I'll give one final point. Who really wanted Sasha Kalajic? Was it the manager? Is the manager insistent on a striker like that? So he's got him today. If we're going to sack him after Saturday, that's a problem, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really good point. Is it the manager though, Nick?
It felt, I might be wrong, but it felt to me like the manager was the one driving, I want a big man striker. Because we've linked with quite a few. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope that's the case. Nick, as we mentioned earlier on, thanks so much for joining us. Hope you'll join us for a full show as the season goes on. Nick Goff, football data expert and Wolves social media influencer, who is fully dressed and had a wonderful night in Bournemouth. Nick, thank you so much for joining us. Cheers, Nick. Thank you. We're going to transfer Nick out and get Steve Herman in, who's travelling first class on the train, I believe, back from London. He's still travelling back from Bournemouth. How's your service on the train, Steve?
That's a good session, isn't it? If he's just coming back now.
He's just getting back from Bournemouth. What a boy.
Chiltern Railways, I recommend it, yes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, there you go. That was not a paid-for promotion. I have to say that as part of the BBC.
You're not a BBC working now, Steve.
That's true. Now I've been.
Now,
obviously down to Bournemouth last night, commentating on the game, but via London at the Royal College of Speech and Language Therapy Awards. That's how I roll.
So Steve's on a train at the moment, as everyone can see. So the signal's jumping in and out a bit. But Steve, as you're on, the main thing I want to talk about with you is the game last night and your take on that and the performance. A couple of positives, but mainly negatives, really, from the three of us on here. We're more frustrated, a little bit angry now. So yeah, your take on obviously you're doing comms there for BBC WM last night. Just your take on last night's performance.
Yeah. Yeah, 90 minutes of commentary on a 0-0 on my own was not the easiest of tasks. But I mean, the passing play, it's nice, it's pretty, isn't it? But I saw a video that was put on Twitter afterwards that said the Wolves passing play is like the cha-cha slide, slide to the front, slide to the back, and left to the right, and all that sort of business. It lacked any killer. The word I used in my full-time report was tame. It just felt very, very tame.
Yeah.
Raul Jimenez, I feel sorry for. I do have sympathy for him, but he should have scored that one-on-one. He could have scored a couple of headers. He's not scored a header since the skull injury, but he should have scored that one-on-one. What you have to hope, and this is what I said to Bruno Lage after the game, I said, do you think having that extra competition from Sasha Kalajic, will that give Raul Jimenez a bit of oomph on something else? I was trying to think of some positives, and that's what I'm trying to think from this signing of Sasha Kalajic. The one thing Bruno Lage says is that he gives him a different profile, and it's something different for Wolves. The other thing from the interview that was quite interesting after the game, and he said the same thing to me after the Newcastle game, was that, and this is something he can't keep relying on. He says, these players have only just arrived. They haven't had a pre-season. He's talking about Nunez and Guedes mainly, obviously.
And that's quite fair, because although, I mean, we're talking about multi-million-pound, almost European superstars of football, so that excuse will only run for so long. But I do think it's partially valid. These guys have literally been at Wolves a couple of weeks.
Yeah, he's got a point. Although with Nunez and Guedes, they've played with half of the team for Portugal.
Yeah, that's a good.
So they've at least they've got a bit of a head start over other players. Kalajic is obviously going to be coming in, and although I think for starters anyway, he's a squad player. He's a bit part player, I think, to start with. He's just an extra option, really. But the problem is, and this is what I saw on Twitter from someone yesterday, and it's an absolutely fair point. There's no point having someone like Sasha Kalajic if you're not going to put crosses into the box.
Yeah.
If we're going to carry on with this pretty football and try to walk it into the penalty area, if you've got a 6 or 7 inch striker in the middle, cross the ball in, get the ball into the box.
Well, this is it, and I think we'll all agree. And Daz said before as well that we've got to get the ball into him. We need to do something different, because at the moment although we could have probably won the game 2 or 3-0 last night, we didn't do enough. We should have been far more shots on target, and it just feels a bit regimented, Steve. And there was good spells against Newcastle, but 4-3 feet is just not working, is it?
No, I think, they certainly have to have other options. And again, going back to what Bruno Lage said, that's what he said about Kalajic. He's a different profile, different type of player. So that would lead you to, in a hopeful way, that would lead you to say, okay, they are thinking of a plan B, and it's not just this way, because I think regimented is a very good word in terms of how Wolves have been trying to play. Yes, there are positives, but going back to what Bruno Lage said about the players having time to adjust and things on the training field and having more time, the problem is with, 5 points from a possible 36, no wins in 12? You don't have time when you're on that sort of run of form. And I'm not saying it's as drastic as Bruno's got to go yet. There are certainly a few fans who are saying that. I don't think, because Fosun have backed him in the way that they have, I don't think they're ready to push that panic button. But but you can't keep calling for time if you're not going to get wins. The wins have to come first, and then you get time. You know what I mean?
Just on his interview as well, Steve, because I know a lot of managers are quite heavily media trained, and they'll give you answers in certain ways. What was your feel on how he was? Was he a frustrated man? Was he angry? Because I get the feeling last night from his actions, he was quite mad at a few of his players. I don't think he was particularly happy. But what was your feel when you were talking to him?
Oh yeah, he definitely wears his heart on his sleeve. I think certainly when you see him on the touchline, he practically wants to sprint after his players when they're playing misplaced pass. And in terms of the interview after the game, I think he is actually quite honest. Maybe too honest for his own good. I mean, you look at after Sunday's game where he basically outed Willy Bolly and said he didn't rock up, he didn't turn up and report for the game. A lot of managers would have kept that under wraps and not said anything. But, and he did it last season with Keanu Hoover, didn't he? He wasn't afraid to out him and say his attitude's not good enough. So I find him quite refreshing in the sense that he does say what he thinks. He doesn't really hold back. But the one thing I have found as well is that he tends to say a lot of the same things. And like I said, and what I will say is Nuno used to do that as well. Nuno used to talk about solutions a lot. He used to say, "Oh, it's going to be a tough opponent." Thing is, Nuno at the time when he was doing that was winning games, and when you're winning games, you can say what the hell you like, and the fans will eat it up. When you're not going through a great run of form, if you keep saying the same lines, then fans are going to get fed up very quickly.
Just a quick note as well, and I want to get Tyler and Knocker's take on this as well. Last night, a lot of fans last night expressed disappointment in the lack of appreciation from the players and the manager going over to the away end. Now, for me, I think that's part of a tradition. People have paid their money, they've gone over, support. At least you want a little bit of clap. You might get a bit of stick if you've lost or whatever, but you go over, you say your thank yous. That didn't appear to happen with all the players and the manager last night. How important is that to you, Tyler?
I think it comes down to a bit what Steve said. If you're winning games, it's an easy thing to do, isn't it? When Nuno was doing it, winning games in front of the South Bank, everyone loves it. It's harder to do it when you lose football matches. Look what happened when Man United did it to Brentford the other week. They rightly got slaughtered for it. I tend not to read too much into those sort of things, if I'm brutally honest. However, on a Wednesday night when people have travelled and paid money, it's the least you can do on that occasion for me. They should all be over there showing their appreciation. So, like Steve said, if you're winning matches, it's an easy thing to do. It becomes a lot harder to do when you're under pressure and the results aren't going well. And it's a natural instinct, isn't it, to not go and befriend 1,000 or 1,500 people that are maybe not very happy with you. So it doesn't worry me too much, but on occasions like last night, midweek away games, it should be done, in my opinion.
Well, Knocker's dad was there last night, the famous Big Knock. He's travelled down there. I mean, that's an enormous day out. Big fan for like 50, 60 years. The least you want, if that trip and you're giving your most of your life to Wolves, is a bit of respect, isn't it, Knock? Yeah,
absolutely. And I think it's, a lot of players don't want to do media after the game, but it's part of the game.
Not with Steve Herman, they don't. And he's angry questioning.
But he's my dad. Just talking about my dad, he's 67 years old. He's cost him 38 quid to go down on the coach. It's cost him money for the ticket. Obviously, he's had to buy food and everything else, and he's got home at 3 o'clock in the morning. You expect the players to go over, and even if they don't want to do it, just a quick thank you for coming. Cheers for your efforts. It would take them 2 seconds, wouldn't it? Walk over, a quick clap, and then you're off again. So, if that's the case, then I can understand they're disappointed. It's a game that you could tell they desperately wanted to win. There was no lack of application, but that's one of the basics for me, and that's certainly something you can't forget, because if you lose the away fans, then it's a whole different ball game. Then the home fans will turn very quickly. We all know that. But if you lose that bank of away fans, then you've got a real problem then.
Yeah, absolutely. Steve, before I move on to my final guest after yourself, I just want to get your quick take on the transfer window so far. It feels like mostly people have been positive and happy with it. I don't know if you've frozen on me there or you're intensely staring at me, but just your take on on this window. I think we might be losing Steve, who's heading towards Birmingham from London. I think you might have gone. Have we lost him? Yeah, I think he's staring at me really angrily. Oh no, he's smiling now. Are we losing you, Steve?
It was going a little bit, but while it's still holding, very quickly, I mean, Wolves have broken their transfer record again. I don't think you can have any moans at Fosun for what they've done in the transfer window. Yes, as far as I'm aware, the last time I looked, there is no centre-back through the door, which I know that Bruno Lage wanted. He said that last night, just as an addition to... I mean, he's happy with Collins and Gilman, but he wanted an addition because obviously Volley's going. So that's a loss. I think Dendoncker, a player who, it's a loss of a good squad member, but at the end of the day, if he's not playing, then you can't blame him for wanting to go away. And Wolves have got the best deal possible, 13 million, got your money back. And his contract was going to be up quite soon. So I don't really begrudge Dendoncker going. Overall, like I said, Nunez and Guedes, good signings. Is Wang still there? Just checking. As far as I'm aware, he's still there.
I've not seen anything that would suggest otherwise. So,
unfortunately, Steve, yeah.
He tried to sign a contract and he missed, unfortunately. So. Couldn't get
There's
that
no
one
need
over
for
the
that.
I thought that might be the reaction. Yeah. But no. Overall, in terms of the transfer window, I think again, going back to what Bruno Lage was saying in his post-match comments, calling for time, calling for patience. The one thing he can't say he's not been backed. I think he really has been. Obviously, Kalajic as well, a striker. So he might want an extra defender, but you know, there's Totti, there's Mascara, who I believe was going to go on loan, but they're going to cancel that if they can't bring anyone else in. There's also the Belgian international who's a free agent, so that doesn't.
Yeah, that's Jason Denier, so that may still go through yet. So, Steve, I know you're travelling back. You were literally still travelling back from Bournemouth from commentating last night. So thanks again. Hopefully I get to spend some more time with you in the commentary box this season. But thank you for joining us on the Wolves Report. Hopefully get you on for a full episode again soon. But with so much going on, I wanted to get all the views in. So it's BBC WM's Steve Herman, who is still making his way back from Bournemouth. Thank you for joining us, Steve. Speak to you soon, pal.
Pleasure, fellas. Cheers. Keep up the good work.
Cheers, Steve. Yeah. Boys, we've done an hour and 10 minutes so far, 20 to go. I
need a substitution. I'm lagging. So.
Are you lagging? We've got 19 minutes to go.
It's past my bedtime here, mate. I should have been in bed an hour ago.
Well, this is what we do, boys. This is what we do, providing the service. Last but no means least, I think he's done his hair. He's had a beer. He's ready. Deputy Sports and Football Editor of Mirror Football and Sports. Good evening, Alex Richards. Are you not crunching away at some deadline deals for us?
No, mate. My day was well and truly over a long time ago.
Oh, you've had a touch there then.
It was an early start for me today, which was I mean, I don't know about you guys, but deadline day just isn't as fun as it used to be.
Well, has it ever been fun for Wolves fans, boys? Has it ever been fun?
Today it makes a change, doesn't it?
We've got to the stage, Alex. I've got a few questions on it. I don't think everyone's been on so far, so I'm going to drop a few questions at you to get your opinion. If that's okay, and just go around the room. Regular contributor Greg Hickman has asked: is Bruno in the last chance saloon now? We don't win Saturday. Is it time up? Let's get in there with a tough question straight away, Alex.
I mean, how much longer can this go on? Would be my first comment, because it's simply not good enough, is it? I mean, Leicester have lost tonight. I'm looking at the bottom three, and it's three Midlands clubs: Leicester, Wolves, and Villa. What's the run now? One winning 14.
I had black hair the last time we won.
This season's 2 goals, 3 points. I heard you say earlier, but okay, we're not playing that badly.
Well, that's it. I don't think. I don't think we've played badly this season. I just don't think we've played well. It's been a bit. It's all right. I've not come away thinking that was rubbish.
Everything's very lethargic, isn't it? I think. Whether by choice or whether it's because you've got players adapting and because they've not quite nailed exactly how they want to play yet. Everything's quite lethargic. Everything's, you know, Nick said earlier, but when they go forward, they don't really go forward and go at pace like when Nuno's team was at its best. When they attacked, when they smelt blood and they attacked, they went for the space. It
was glorious.
They just went for it. Like Bournemouth last night, the amount of times they got the ball down the wing into Neto, into Guedes, and then come back and come across again. I guess that's why you want a 6'7" centre forward if you're going to go down the wings and you're going to cross the ball. But whether Bruno's in last chance, I think if they lose badly at the weekend, the crowd will let them know that it's not good enough and that this is an issue. You then have games against Liverpool and Manchester City coming up now. You don't really want to throw a new manager into that, do you?
No.
But as you say, how long do you carry on? I mean, the point is he's been backed this summer with good money. You know, we all look at it and we can say that this squad is as good a Wolves squad as we've ever seen. So he has the tools at his disposal. He now has to go out and use them and get points on the board, and he needs to do it quickly. I think we'll all sit here and say, right, Liverpool and Man City, you're almost going to get a free pass because those two teams are on a different level. If you go and compete and you give a good count of yourselves and you lose, then that's fair enough. But so here's the thing with it. This is a really awkward season. You've got a World Cup in the middle of it, halfway through. Do you go with a manager until halfway through the season and give him that amount of time and say that you have given him a real chance at something? Because you could get there. You could win once in your first however many games. You could be sitting bottom with 8 points from, 17 games or so before they go to the World Cup. And then you bring in somebody for the second half of the season. Does that give that person enough time?
It's a tough one, isn't it? And
saloon yet, but
yeah, I'm going to overlap this with a question from Richard, who aimed this at me, and I changed my mind. Richard Holmes asked, Ryan, at the end of last season, you were quite reasonably Bruno Lage out. I was. How much longer do you give him? Little has changed attack-wise, yet we spent big and have a back four. I did change my mind, Richard, because I watched that Ask Wolves video. I watched it a few times. I did get sucked in, but I really like what he said. Now, you're allowed to change your mind. I mean, you're not allowed to change your mind on social media or on a podcast because I'll be in big trouble. But I did, and because you know what, I got the feeling he was going to stay. So you know what, I want him to do well. I want him to succeed. I don't think we've played bad, but I don't think we've played good enough. And I know the two, Tyler and Knocker, have laughed at me for this, but Wolves could be on 9 points now, but we're not, and that's all right. That's all right. I know.
Look at the fixtures we've had, though. We've had at least 3 of those games we should have picked up positive results in. We've dropped points in ridiculous games. I mean, yesterday you're playing a team who's conceded 16 goals in 3 games, and we don't open them up once. And we've gone to Leeds, we've got ourselves in front, and then we've absolutely capitulated. We've played Spurs where, we've done well, but again, we can't put the ball in the back of the net. And against Newcastle, we're winning until Hwang Choi's acrobatics in the 93rd minute. So we could be on 10 points, but we're not, because we've not been good enough to put the ball in the back of the net. So how long do you let it go on? Because if we do lose to Southampton and then we do lose the next 2, which you would expect, and then we've got West Ham, you could potentially be knocking on the door of 20 games without a win.
Yeah.
Well, no one survives that. Who's ever survived that?
No one's surviving that. Let's keep the questions flowing on the same sort of subjects. We'll start Tyler off with this one. Andy Frost asked, just wondered, at what point do the players become responsible for their actions on the pitch? The manager isn't misplacing passes or missing 1v1s. Good question. Tyler?
No, I don't really agree, because like you said, Ryan, I'll sort of back you here. It's not like we are misplacing many passes, and it's not like we're missing many one-on-one chances because we don't get there to create them. I mean, yeah, it's not Bruno's fault that Jimenez didn't score last night, but it's Bruno's fault that the style of play means he gets 1 chance in 90 minutes and not 3 or 4. So for me, at the moment, it is on him. The players are good enough, aren't they? They've got reputations, they've got ability. It's clear to see they're good footballers. The manager's just not getting a tune out of them, whether that's style, whether that's tempo, whether that's they're not bought into him. Could be a few reasons, couldn't it? But, you know, we don't often give the ball away in bad areas or make mistakes in possession. So
no,
I purely think it is based on, rightly or wrongly, the manager at the moment. They're good footballers, very good footballers, and he's not getting a tune out of them at the moment. And that's what's worrying.
Alex, you've got to play to their strengths as well, haven't you? I mean, we saw how much more effective we were at 4-2-3-1. You could tell by the way they're moving. That's what they wanted to play. So if you're not going to play to players' strengths and you're going to leave your most attacking options on the bench for players who are out of form, then that's got to be on the manager for me.
So is there any responsibility with the players, Alex, or are we a little bit early for that yet? Or is this mainly on the manager?
I think there's responsibility with the players, certainly. If they, but as Tyler says, if they're not exactly creating loads of chances. Jimenez is the example. He gets one chance and he misses it. You know, he's clearly a player devoid of confidence. A few of the attacking players there clearly not fully at it. Pedence made such a difference last night. And you can look at the numbers going back last season on how much better the team performs as an attacking unit when he's involved. And to me, you know, his cameo last night was enough that he should start at the weekend. And as the guys have said there, you switch up your formation to 4-2-3-1 if you need to get him in the team, and get an extra attacker in there.
It should never have been dropped in the first place for me.
Well,
he scored at Leeds. He made the two, although
Yeah.
he was outstanding against Fulham, he made our two brightest moments, and then he's dropped. So again, from a manager's perspective, how does that sit with someone like Podence? Like Knocker said, our goal scorers this season, we've only got 3. 2 of them are on the bench. It's more questions than answers, isn't it? Unfortunately, at the moment.
I think a really good point that Tyler made about to this question is that how long does Bruno get? I can't remember the word you exactly used, just, but it's along the lines of the board will see the team as a collection of assets, because that's what Wolves are now. They're buying younger players. They've got the age of the squad down, and they are the board want a more attacking formation and more expansive game played, because that is where players are going to get their value rising and their assets will appreciate. You know, Max Kilman playing in a back three, all right, very good. Max Kilman having to do much more defensively and stand out more in a back four, and playing 10, 15 yards further up the pitch, is going to appeal to bigger clubs much more.
Great point.
Getting the likes of Pedro Neto playing in a more attacking formation, getting his goal and assist numbers up, is going to appeal to bigger clubs more, and he's going to make his transfer fee rise. You know, this is Bruno's job, effectively. If when we absolutely boil it down to what Bruno Lage's job is at Wolves, it is to keep them in the Premier League, to now play decent football, and to get the value of that squad and each individual player rising. As soon as he's not doing those, that's when he will be gone. Now, how close do the board think he is to that? Well, they've backed a lot of money on him still being the guy to do it. But you know, they've brought in Matheus Nunes for big money because they think that he's a guy in midfield who can help those players around to enhance their value, and it'll enhance his value in turn. And I think we've seen it today with Leander Dendoncker going. He was a depreciating asset, and you could sell him today, so he's gone. This is what I know. It's not the greatest way to speak about a football club, but being realistic, they were bought by what is in effect an investment company to be invested in and to grow, and that's exactly where we're going, and that extends to on the field. So when they decide Bruno Lage isn't quite doing that anymore, that's when he will go. Now, we're always going to come back to it. I think he doesn't go until October. Now, if he goes, I think he'll have Southampton, he'll have the Liverpool and Man City games, and then we will see that run of fixtures that they've got in London. That's going to make or break him.
It's really interesting having this conversation. There's a lot of frustration, but hopefully, and I know Glenn Hoddle said Frankowski was the missing piece of the jigsaw. I really hope Sasha is the missing piece of the jigsaw, because someone of that size, those physical and aerial attributes, 3 games, 3 assists in the Bundesliga this year, I certainly wouldn't mind. I don't mind if he doesn't score, but if he's setting people up there, he's the foil to get Neto in. I know Knocker really rates Neto this season, to get Pedence involved with the play. Guedes, he's a player with an absolute finish on him. That guy can thump home. We haven't put him in any positions yet. The 1 or 2 shots he's had, he's made himself. We've not set him up, and I really hope Sasha is the man to do that. I mean,
one thing on Guedes against Spurs, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here. Against Spurs, he ran him behind a couple of times and got him behind. I haven't seen him do that the last 2 games.
No, that's a good point.
He was more central in that game, though, wasn't he? He seemed to be playing a lot more straight through the middle as opposed to pulling out wide, which is where those chances came from. So, well, I agree. Yeah, I thought against Spurs, I thought
do you think because of Pedence was playing that, Pedence started that game, didn't he? So technically, he was allowed to drift in as a false 9. Maybe now because Jimenez isn't there, that space isn't there for him because Jimenez is further up the pitch. So with actually Podence being there, it coming deeper, it created space for him in. That's just my theory on that, but that's a really good point, Alex. But we want to see more of that. I want him in getting those positions. He's been brought in to score goals. He's a goal-scoring sort of attacker stroke midfielder. And if you're not feeding these players, we can't expect them to score goals because they're not going to be able to beat 2 or 3 men every single time and thump one in the top corner. Let's get one more question in before we move on, before Knocker and Tyler fall asleep on me again. We did that last night after a few hours watching football. But there's one more question here. Here we go. Sean Smith asks, are we really a back four or is Neves now a glorified sweeper? Now, you talked about this earlier on, Tyler. I think maybe it was deceptive because Wolves played that high up the pitch. The centre-back, we talked about last night, how high up the centre-backs were. It maybe made Neves look deeper than he was. I may be wrong in that, but I know us three talked and watched the game. We're like, look how high Kilman is. Look how high Collins is. I actually quite like Neves starting the playoff there. Look at his capabilities of picking those passes out left and right. And then at the right time, he does get further up pitch, which we saw on Newcastle on Sunday. So for me, I mean, I'm reluctant to use the phrase quarterback, but I wouldn't really know how to describe it anyway when he's coming and collecting the ball there and pinging it all over the place. So, guys, what you answered the question there, Tyler?
He certainly wasn't on Sunday. He was, he was everywhere, wasn't he, against Newcastle? Last night, he was a bit too deep for me. Whether that's a tactical decision or what, I don't know. But I want to see him playing like he did against Newcastle, where he can influence the game, both ends of the pitch. That's where you get the best out of him. And again, it comes back to Bruno coming up with a system, we'll get a tune out of people to make that happen. And like Alex said, if he's not making it happen, then it's not going to be there for much longer, is he?
Absolutely. Knocker, your take on potentially glorified sweeper?
No, I agree with Chris. I think against Newcastle, as I said earlier, I think that's the best midfield display I've ever seen. But yesterday he was very deep, and I think you make a valid point in terms of the centre backs were very high. He was dropping in to do a job there, but I want him in midfield. I want him affecting the game. I want him to be able to distribute from a more attacking area and bring the fullbacks into play and the wide attackers. So I don't think that was a plan. I think that's just kind of how it ended up for us, that he'd drop in and cover. But I certainly think against Southampton, I expect him to be higher at the pitch.
Alex?
Yeah, I'd agree with what Knocker said there. It doesn't look like it was a plan. It was just how the game was going. They were dominating the ball. They were pressing that much. But your two centre halves are both pushing up because Bournemouth didn't even try to keep anyone on the halfway line. They just retreated that far. So I think it's just one of those things that just happened last night. And Neves, that's where he could get on the ball. That's where he found most space. So I think it's just one of those things. Saying that, I wouldn't expect it to happen against Southampton, but if it did again, you'd ask questions about it. But I think it was just one of those things, purely the state of the game, the way it was going. It just happened.
Looking ahead now, final few minutes of the show. Thank you for everyone that's commented, watching on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Thank you for the comments and the questions. I've got as many on the screen as I could, so thanks for your contribution, which is really important during a live show. Moving on to Southampton then. I think this will be a more open game because I think Southampton will look at Wolves and come to Molineux and they'll have a go. I don't see Southampton tucking in. I don't think that's the way they play. So for me, I'd rather play against a team that's going to come at you than tuck in like what Bournemouth did last night. So what changes would you make to the starting 11, Knocker?
I'll bring Sasha in. I'll bring Ait-Nouri in. I'll go 4-2-3-1 and take Martinho out and go with the two of Neves and Nunez. Personally, I'll bring Adama in for Neto, and I'll go Neto, Podence and Guedes behind the new guy. I don't think he'll do that. I think the team will be very similar. I think we'll stick with 4-3-3. I think Ait-Nouri might come in because Johnny was a little bit exposed. I thought yesterday he kept cutting back inside. But I anticipate the team's going to be pretty similar myself. I think that Raul will start as well.
Alex, what changes would you make for the game tomorrow? Sorry, Saturday.
I'd definitely bring Podence in. I think that's certainly a change. I agree with the guys. I think I would leave out Moutinho for it, because I think if you go that bit more attacking and you have Neves and you have Nunez as your two in the base of midfield, then if you are in the lead and you play 65 minutes, you can bring Moutinho on to calm it down.
You can manage it then, can't you?
Yeah. I mean, that would involve Bruno making a sub quite early. So that's a different case. But I think I'd go with the 4-2-3-1. I'd go with Podence. As Knocker said, I don't think he'll start the new guy. I think he'll stick with Jimenez. I think he needs to stick with Jimenez as well, at least for a game or two, because if you just drop him out, his confidence is already on the floor.
But on reverse of that, Alex, Molineux needs a lift. We need a goal. We relied on our only goal at home this year to be an absolute blockbuster from just outside the box, a 20-yard screamer. We're not creating enough chances. This is a guy now that we don't have to take short corners anymore. There's 2 6'4" centre-backs and a 6'7" forward. I'm expecting hard whipped-in corners now. Also now, we've got an out ball. We can if we don't have to cut it back, we can put a percentage ball to the far post where he will win nearly all of the knockdowns. So as much as I love Raul, and Tyler said earlier on about being too nice, I think he has to be brutal. Bruno's running out of time. He needs a win on Saturday. And as he's so reluctant, as we all know, to make changes, if it's not going well, how quick's he going to change it? Can he afford to take that risk with being over loyal to certain players?
But he's spoken very kindly about Jimenez and made it clear that he's his main guy. Now, as Nick
you also said Dendoncker was staying.
Well, that's true. As Nick said earlier, is Kolasinac a player he wanted, or is he signing from above? I guess we'll find that out at about 2:00 on Saturday if he's in the team or not. If he's straight in the starting lineup, then there's no doubt about it. He's very much a Bruno Lage signing. I think he'll stay with Jimenez. I also agree. I'd bring Aït-Nouri back in purely for the game. It's going to be Southampton are a similar side to ourselves in the way they've brought in a lot of younger players this summer, and they're going to make it attacking. It will be quite end to end, I would expect. So I think you bring Aït-Nouri in. Whether Johnny or Semedo play on the other side is a different matter. I think I'd stick with Semedo. I think he's been very good since coming back. And yeah, Podence, Neto, Guedes still behind Jimenez, I think, is how he will go.
Yeah, so, yeah. I think we're all on the same page. I think we all want 4-2-3-1. I think that's unanimous. And I think we saw at Bournemouth what a difference it made. Probably didn't help that Bournemouth just weren't interested in attacking in the second half, really. But in terms of the difference it made to us, the confidence, we had one off the line, and we also had a one-on-one which we created pretty much as soon as we made those changes. I'm probably not going to start Adama. I'd like to, but I'm not. I'm going to leave Neto, Guedes in. I'm going to put Podence in the 10, drop Moutinho out, Aït-Nouri to the left back, Semedo right, and I'm going to start Sasha up top. That would be my 11. So before we close up the show, it's the fun part of the show that no one gets ever right because it just happens. So we should all predict Wolves to lose, and then maybe we'll win. We'll start off with you, Tyler. Here we go. Give me your first score and prediction for the weekend for Wolves v Southampton.
Just hoping we can nick it 1-0, to be honest.
I'm absolutely taking that right now.
I'm not saying we will, but I hope we do. And who's going to score? I don't know. You've got to have a shot first, haven't you? Maybe Guedes.
We'll take that then. Nocky?
1-1, Ward Prowse for the opener.
Deary me. Reality check for me. Alex,
we've got a new centre half.
Go on.
I mean, he's 18 and he's not going to play for the first team for quite some time by the look of it.
There we go. And Alex Richards exclusive live on the Wolves Report.
No, absolutely not. I'm just going through some emails and it's just come across. Alfie Pond from Exeter.
There we go.
I can't say I know anything about it.
Oh, we don't throw him in the deep end.
I mean, serious note though. No centre half in, and an injury to Collins or Kilman.
Yeah, that's
a big problem.
That's a worry.
Not put dampener on things.
And end it on a high note, Alex, and give me your first scorer and scorer. for the game against Southampton?
I think a bit of competition might inspire him, so I'll go Jimenez first goal.
Oof.
And I do think they will win, and I'll go 3-1.
Obviously, Wolves, yeah?
Yeah.
Just checking, making
I
sure.
think Southampton are a team that if you can, if they go behind, they do drop their heads. I mean, the other night is a complete anomaly with Chelsea and them coming back to win. But if they do go behind, you can then extend and get away from them. They do drop their heads a little bit. So I would hope that we can kick on if we get a good start.
I would certainly take some of that. I'm going to say Wolves 2-0, Sasha debut, header early on, Molyneux roaring, everyone's happy. A positive podcast next week.
How's he going to get the opener? He's on the bench.
A positive podcast next week. We're all talking about our new footballer, a win. Things are looking up. Thank you for joining us on episode 38 of the Wolves Report and our transfer deadline day special. Thank you so much to Knocker and Tyler, who've done the full hour and 35. Also, thank you to BBC Reviews, Daz Hale, Steve Herman. Also, thank you to Nick Goff and, of course, Alex Richards. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Hopefully, we'll be on again soon talking about Wolves' first win of the season in the league anyway. Up the Wolves.